The greatest struggle a person can face in life is not with others, not with society, not with circumstances, but with themselves. This internal conflict is the most persistent, the most intense, and often the most overlooked. It is the silent war that plays out every single day in the mind, in the heart, and in the soul. It's the voice of doubt whispering you're not good enough. It's the hesitation that paralyzes action. It's the fear of failure dressed up as caution, and the fear of success disguised as procrastination. This battle within is what ultimately shapes every decision, every behavior, and every outcome in life. When you look at your life and wonder why things aren't where you want them to be, the natural instinct is to point outward, to circumstances, to people, to luck, or to timing. But the truth is, the biggest obstacle is the reflection staring back at you in the mirror. It's the part of you that is still holding on to past trauma, the part that fears change, the part that seeks comfort over growth. It's the inner saboteur that convinces you to settle for less, to give up too soon, to not even try. This internal opposition doesn't scream at you, it whispers. And those whispers are subtle but powerful. They tell you you're too tired to keep going. They say that no one will care if you stop. They tempt you with short-term pleasure over long-term achievement. And day by day, if left unchecked, those whispers grow louder, more persuasive, more dominant, until your dreams become distant and your potential gets buried under the weight of what-ifs and if-onlys. Fighting this internal enemy requires brutal honesty. It requires looking within and acknowledging the patterns you've allowed to govern your life. The excuses, the self-sabotage, the quitting, it all comes from within. And no matter how much external motivation you consume, no matter how many books you read or speeches you hear, nothing will change unless you choose to confront yourself. Real growth begins when you stop lying to yourself, when you stop pretending that the reason you're stuck is because of what's happening around you, rather than what's happening inside you. The mind is a battlefield. Every thought is either a weapon that builds you up or a poison that tears you down. And every day you have to choose which thoughts to feed. Will you feed the ones that remind you of your strength, your worth, your capacity to change? Or will you feed the ones that remind you of your failures, your fears, and your flaws? You become what you consistently entertain in your mind. And if you want to change your life, you must first change the narrative playing in your head. There is a version of you that you've never met, a stronger, wiser, more disciplined version who's waiting on the other side of your excuses. But to reach that version, you have to be willing to endure discomfort. You have to face the emotional resistance that rises when you try to change. Because growth is not comfortable. Change is not easy. Progress is not passive. It demands sacrifice. It demands pain. And most of all, it demands a confrontation with the old self who's afraid of what the new self might become. Think about all the times you gave up. All the moments when you knew what needed to be done, but didn't do it. That wasn't life stopping you. That wasn't the world being unfair. That was you, choosing to surrender to the weaker voice inside. And until you decide that enough is enough, until you decide that the pain of remaining the same is greater than the pain of change, you will continue to live beneath your potential. But the beautiful thing is, this internal enemy is not unbeatable. It can be silenced, it can be trained, and it can be transformed. You can take control of your mind. You can discipline your emotions. You can create habits that override the negative programming that's been holding you back. But it begins with a choice to no longer be a victim of your own thoughts, a choice to be accountable, a choice to rise. That means showing up even when you don't feel like it. That means being consistent when motivation fades. That means doing what you said you were going to do long after the feeling you set it in has disappeared. Because discipline isn't about how you feel, it's about what you decide. And if you can win the internal war, if you can overcome that part of yourself that always finds a way to stop you, there is nothing you won't be able to do. You must also learn to recognize the masks your inner enemy wears. Sometimes it shows up as perfectionism, making you believe you're never ready, never good enough to begin. Sometimes it comes disguised as logic, convincing you that playing small is the wise decision. Other times, it's comparison, making you feel like you're falling behind because someone else is ahead. But each of these is just another tactic to keep you from tapping into your true power. The truth is, no external force has as much power over your life as your internal dialogue. You will never outperform your self-image. You will never outwork your belief system. And you will never rise higher than the standards you set for yourself internally. That is why the battle within must be taken seriously. Because the moment you change the way you think about yourself, the moment you stop tolerating your own excuses, everything begins to shift. When you realize that you are both the problem and the solution, that's when you gain real control. That's when you begin to understand that the life you want isn't found by chasing external validation. It's built by conquering internal limitations. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, every time you override fear with faith, you chip away at the old version of yourself and step closer to the version who can finally live free. Winning this war doesn't happen in a day, but it begins with one. The day you stop running from yourself and start facing the truth head-on. The day you make a decision, not based on emotion, not based on motivation, but based on purpose. Because you know that the life you're capable of living is on the other side of the pain you've been avoiding. That's where freedom is. That's where power is. That's where the real victory lies, within. The journey toward personal transformation begins the moment you shift your inner dialogue from "I should" to "I must." This transition, subtle in language but seismic in impact, marks the point where dreams become obligations and desire evolves into discipline. Many people live their lives in a perpetual state of indecision, expressing their intentions in conditional terms. I should get healthier. I should start that business. I should write that book. These thoughts create the illusion of commitment while allowing comfort and procrastination to maintain control. The phrase "I should" is passive. It lacks urgency, authority, and power. It offers an escape route, a back door to retreat through when fear or resistance creeps in. In contrast, when you declare "I must," everything changes. That statement removes ambiguity and signals a clear, irreversible direction. It implies action, ownership, and necessity. There's no more waiting for the perfect moment or the right amount of motivation. There is only execution. This mental pivot is one of the most powerful tools in achieving lasting change because it ties the goal to your identity and values rather than just your emotions. Turning should into must requires a deeper level of emotional connection to your purpose. It isn't enough to want something. You have to need it on a core, non-negotiable level. This need doesn't always arise from desperation. More often, it emerges from clarity. When you understand why you're doing what you're doing, when the vision becomes vivid and personal, action becomes a necessity. You no longer ask whether you feel like it. You do it because it aligns with who you are choosing to become. This transformation can be seen in every person who has ever broken through limitations, whether physical, mental, or situational. The athlete who rises at dawn to train despite the soreness, the writer who puts pen to paper every day despite writer's block, the entrepreneur who keeps building despite failure. All of them reached a point where their dream wasn't optional. It became a must. Not because someone told them it had to be, but because they internalized it. It became personal. This is the key difference between those who merely wish and those who achieve. One group is content to imagine, the other is compelled to act. When you adopt the mindset of "I must," you also assume full responsibility. You stop blaming circumstances, other people, or time for your lack of progress. You realize that you may not control every variable, but you do control your commitment. That realization is both liberating and sobering. It strips away excuses and exposes the truth. If it really matters to you, you'll find a way. If it doesn't, you'll find a reason not to. This shift also impacts the quality of your focus. When something becomes a must, distractions lose their grip. You no longer entertain every notification, temptation, or impulse that shows up. You begin to filter your environment, your choices, and your actions through the lens of your commitment. You ask, does this move me closer to or further from what I must achieve? That question creates a powerful filter. one that drives prioritization and eliminates wasted motion. Discipline, once seen as restrictive, becomes the key to freedom because it frees you from the chaos of indecision. The language you use matters. What you tell yourself shapes your perception, and your perception shapes your behavior. When your self-talk is filled with indecisive phrases like "I should," you keep yourself in a loop of doubt and delay. But when your self-talk reflects certainty, "I must, I will, I am," you begin to rewire your brain for action. The power lies not just in what you say, but in what you repeatedly affirm to yourself. Your thoughts are rehearsals for your reality. Speak in terms that support movement, not hesitation. Embracing the must mindset doesn't mean you won't encounter obstacles. On the contrary, the road will likely become steeper. But difficulty is not the enemy. Disengagement is. When you're committed on the level of must, setbacks are no longer signals to quit. They are indicators that you're stretching. Pain becomes a sign of progress, not punishment. Each obstacle becomes an opportunity to recommit and adapt, not retreat. This level of commitment is what makes growth sustainable. It fortifies your mindset and cultivates resilience. People often wait for motivation to strike before they take action. But motivation is fleeting. It's like a spark that burns bright and fades quickly. What sustains long-term action is discipline, and discipline is born when you operate from must. The external push of motivation might get you started, but only the internal pull of purpose and necessity will keep you going when things get hard, boring, or uncertain. This mindset also changes the way you handle fear. Most people hesitate because they're afraid of failure, rejection, imperfection. But when your goal becomes a must, fear doesn't disappear. It simply loses its veto power. You may still feel fear, but it won't dictate your direction. You'll move forward in spite of it, because the cost of not acting becomes greater than the discomfort of trying. That shift flips the script entirely. Instead of fear being a stopping point, it becomes a signal to pay attention and keep going. To reach this point, you often have to tie your must to something bigger than yourself. Maybe it's your family. Maybe it's a future version of you that you're committed to becoming. Maybe it's a calling you feel deep inside. Whatever the source, it has to be meaningful enough to move you beyond excuses. You have to connect to the why behind your must. Otherwise, when resistance shows up, and it always will, you'll crumble. There's a certain power that comes when you remove the safety net of indecision. It's like burning the boats after you reach the shore. There's no going back. That kind of commitment sharpens your focus and multiplies your energy. You show up differently when you believe there is no plan B. You operate with urgency, with intensity, with clarity. You stop tolerating half-effort or partial progress. Every step, every hour, every breath is aimed at the target, because it has to be. This shift doesn't require extraordinary talent. It doesn't depend on luck, timing, or external validation. It starts in the mind and manifests in the body. The moment you decide that your dream is not something you should do someday, but something you must do now, is the moment your life starts to change. The world responds to energy, to conviction, to movement, and all of it begins with one internal shift from optional to essential, from someday to now, from should to must. The greatest enemy you will ever face isn't outside of you. It lives within. It's the voice in your head that whispers doubts when you dream, that raises fear when you step forward, and that pulls you backward the moment you try to grow. Every single day you are in a battle, not against the world, not against your past, not against your circumstances, but against the part of yourself that wants to stay comfortable, stay safe, and stay unchanged. You are both the obstacle and the opportunity. The only question is, which version of you will win? There's a version of you that craves more strength, more clarity, more peace, more purpose. That version wakes up early, trains when it's tired, studies when it's bored, and pushes forward when there's no applause. But then there's the other version, the one that wants to take it easy, the one that says tomorrow, the one that's addicted to validation and afraid of discipline. And every day, These two versions of you collide. This isn't just a motivational concept. It's reality. Every goal you've ever missed, every habit you've struggled to break, every moment you backed down when you knew you could rise. It wasn't because you lacked the ability. It was because the weaker version of you won that round. The enemy is not your environment. It's your excuses. It's your comfort zone. It's the belief that someone else holds the key to your future. They don't. You do. The truth is brutal, but it's liberating. If you are the problem, you are also the solution. What you do in silence determines who you become in public. The time you invest in private, the extra reps when no one is watching, the quiet decisions to say no to distractions, the late-night journaling to understand your own triggers and weaknesses. Those moments build the version of you that's capable of breaking through the noise of mediocrity. But the catch is this: nobody will hand that version of you over. You've got to fight for it. You've got to dig deep, deeper than you ever thought you could. Not just once, every single day. You see, the mind is like a battlefield. Thoughts come at you like bullets. Some aim to elevate, others to destroy. And the most dangerous ones are the quietest. The ones that sound like reason but are rooted in fear. The ones that say, just take a break, you've done enough. The ones that say, you don't have what it takes. The ones that use logic to shrink your potential. Here's the part most people don't want to hear. Growth is violent. It hurts. It's uncomfortable. It demands that you shed pieces of yourself that no longer serve the vision you've been given. And that process, it will cost you something. It will cost you your laziness. It will cost you your excuses. It will cost you your victim mindset. But what you get in return, you get your life back. Too many people are praying for miracles while refusing to confront their own habits. They're asking for strength but running from resistance. They're begging for purpose while clinging to patterns that block it. You can't have both. You can't be passive and powerful at the same time. One has to die, and the one that dies is the one you feed the least. You were not born to be average. There's something inside of you that knows this. But knowing is not enough. You have to act like it. You have to move like it. You have to think, train, eat, rest, and speak like someone who understands that their greatest competition is their former self. Comparison with others is a trap. There will always be someone with more experience, more talent, more money, or more recognition. But none of that matters. The only race worth running is the one against who you were yesterday. Did you get better today? Did you sharpen your discipline, your focus, your character? Or did you settle, scroll, and slip? You cannot conquer the world until you conquer yourself. You cannot lead others until you lead your own thoughts. You cannot change your situation until you change the one thing that matters most: your response to it. Some days you will feel like giving up. That's not weakness, it's proof you're in the fight. But don't you dare stop swinging, don't you dare let comfort win. Because everything you want is on the other side of resistance. That body, that business, that breakthrough, that version of you that walks in clarity, power, and self-respect, it's waiting, but it won't chase you. You have to chase it. You have to show up, even when you're not motivated, especially when you're not motivated. Because motivation comes and goes, but purpose stays planted when discipline takes root. There's a part of you that knows what needs to be done. The problem is, you keep negotiating with the weaker part. You let your feelings vote. You let your fatigue become a reason instead of a reminder to push. But every time you silence the excuse, every time you do what you said you would do, even when it's hard, you're training that stronger version of you to rise. And eventually, it won't be a battle anymore. It'll be a standard. So stop playing small. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for the perfect mood, the perfect day, the perfect plan. You won't always feel ready. That's not a sign to pause. It's a sign to act. Resistance is proof that you're on the right path. The question is no longer whether you can do it. You can. The question is, will you do what it takes to become the kind of person who does it? Will you wake up early, even when you're tired? Will you train your mind like you train your body? Will you speak life over yourself when doubt creeps in? Will you show up again and again when there's no applause, no audience, no validation? Because that's what it takes. That's what separates the dreamers from the doers. Not talent. Not luck. Not background. Just a relentless refusal to lose to yourself. You are the only thing in your way, but you are also the only one who can break through it.